Uh-oh. So it appears that Prater has caught Dexter in a vulnerable position. Also, Bautista, has he placed himself on the suspects list? All of that and more on a brand new Tonight's the Night. Stay tuned. All right. Good evening to those of you on the East Coast. Good evening also to those of you on the West Coast. Welcome to Tonight's the Night, the unofficial Dexter, I should say, Resurrection podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, and travel down the world that is one Dexter Morgan to all of you dark passengers out there. If you know how we do our show here. I will be sure to go through a brief recap of the episode in question, that episode being episode 8, known as The Kill Room, Where It Happens. Following the recap, I will go into some analysis and some themes. But before I do that, I will have our guests joining us, and I will introduce them to you all. And then following our themes and analysis, we will go into some theories. That is, the guest host and myself will go into some theories before we wrap it up with our final review. So with that being said, before I get into the synopsis, I want to also remind you guys that I will make an effort to also timestamp this. So again, if you're watching the show live, I really do appreciate it. But if you happen to catch us after this episode is aired, it will be timestamped so that way you can skip forward or backtrack or rewind to your heart's content to a specific part of this episode. So just keep that in mind. With that out of the way, we're going to get into the synopsis. So give me one moment. All right, so this week's episode began with Bautista continuing his investigation against Dexter and Harrison, piecing together the info he had collected thus far. Bautista begins formulating a game plan to catch Dexter in the act. And elsewhere, Dexter reaches out to Al in his attempt to remove the final member of the SK Club. And if you know what I mean by SK Club here, of course, it's the Serial Killer Club, is my shorthand that we've had here on the show. Feigning lingering trauma from his altercation with Gemini, he convinces, Dexter convinces Al to meet up with him following a Broadway show. Meanwhile, we find Prater finalizing the finishing touches of his gala mentioned earlier in the season. However, before he can truly bask in his anticipation for his upcoming event, he is visited by Charlie, who further highlights her suspicions regarding Red and all the questionable, mysterious circumstances that have befallen the SK group since Red's arrival. Though Prater is unconvinced of Charlie's suspicions, Charlie pushes forward with her theory. Elsewhere, Elsa shares with Harrison her continued struggles with her landlord, struggles that may result in her and her child's becoming homeless. Meanwhile, Dexter scouts his kill room for Al, his next target, and upon finding a wig store for the Rapunzel killer, he preps for their encounter. As all of this is happening, we're treated to Bautista and Wallace continuing their respective investigations into Dexter and Harrison, while Dexter makes a follow-up visit with Blessing's daughter for another acupuncture lesson. In doing so, Dexter unintentionally oversteps, sharing a revelation with Joy. We're going to get into more of that later. Afterwards, Harrison asks Dexter to meet up to discuss a predicament the matter that is of Elsa's landlord. And it's during this meeting, it soon becomes clear that Harrison seeks his father's help in the matter, yet is unaware of his father's typical methods. Placing his son's concerns at ease, Dexter presents a more civilized solution. Later that night, as Dexter awaits his rendezvous with Al, he does some digging on Elsa's landlord, digging which leads him down a rabbit hole far more insidious than initially anticipated. However, before he can officially determine his landlord or this landlord as a candidate for his code, he soon realizes that Al is nowhere in sight. Upon calling him, he is made aware that Al has made the decision to leave his show early in order to get a head start on his trip back home. Aggravated by Al's escaping his clutches, Dexter refocuses his sights on Elsa's landlord by researching the laws and policies surrounding her predicament with the help of Blessing's wife, Constance. However, in seeking help from Constance, Dex is soon confronted by Blessing over the revelation shared with his daughter. Later on, Dexter decides to confront Elsa's landlord with his findings surrounding the laws and policies that he's violating, only to be blown off by him. Meanwhile, as Dexter gets closer, or should say, as Harrison, I should say, gets closer with his college tour guide, Dex gets the drop on the landlord, bringing him to the kill room originally intended for Al. As Dex uses the opportunity to frighten the landlord rather than killing him, he is interrupted by Bautista's arrival at the location. As the traumatized landlord bumps into Bautista, Dex narrowly escapes Bautista's clutches without being seen. As he's getting away, Dexter eventually surmises that Bautista was likely tracking him and soon discovers the low-tech means used by Bautista to do so. Afterwards, Bautista calls on the detectives, Wallace and Oliva, to come to the location of the kill room to validate his suspicions. However, with no proof of Dex being at the scene, no victim present since he ran off, and no indication of Dex's whereabouts, thanks to him destroying the tracker, the detectives start setting their sights on Bautista as a potential suspect, much to his chagrin. To make matters worse, Wallace, upon further digging, discovers that Bautista is no longer acting in law enforcement and is in fact retired. The episode closes with Harrison meeting up for a meal with Dexter as he reveals that Elsa's landlord has begun improving the conditions of Elsa's unit. However, before he and Harrison can celebrate, Prater, with Charlie in tow outside, interrupts the proceedings to find Dexter, whom he still believes to be Red, with the son that he has never mentioned. And we arrive at the end of our episode. All right, so in talking about this episode, before I dive into that, I want to be able to introduce our guest for this week. Today's guest is a jack of all trades, as he is an accomplished videographer, editor, as well as a content creator. It is my pleasure to welcome a first-timer to the show, Mr. Kayode Kendall. Let me bring him on now. Kayode, hello. Think you're muted, sir. Hold on. There we go. Think you muted yourself again. Hold on. Okay, go ahead. Think you muted yourself. Go for it.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
You can mute it yourself. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I am new to StreamYard.
No worries, man. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you all?
I'm good. So, interesting episode that we have. I do have my thoughts, but since you are our guest this week, what were your initial impressions of the episode without getting into details? Because we'll say that for the review at the end. Just general thoughts.
I mean, here's the thing, because I've watched the original Dexter series and then Dexter New Blood came out, and I've also read one or two of the actual books that
Yes.
Was the basis for the original Dexter show in the first place. I thought it was pretty good. I've been enjoying Resurrection in general. I had to really catch up on it because initially I wasn't really planning on watching it, just because I felt like the ending of New Blood and like the ending of the original series, where both of those endings were fairly anticlimactic.
Yes,
I
agreed.
was afraid of that being the case with this show.
Yeah, yeah,
And I'm still cautious about whether or not that could end up being the case. But I've liked where it's gone. I've liked how Dexter has handled trying to balance being back in Harrison's life once Harrison finds out that he didn't kill him at the end of New Blood, and then also encountering this whole group of serial killers that
yeah.
just gives him a target-rich environment.
Yeah. Yes, yes, indeed. And I mean, I would say this: there have been episodes that I felt were stronger. There were components of this that I did enjoy, but I mean, overall, I felt like it was a pretty tame episode by Dexter standards of what has come before in the prior episodes thus far this season, and even before.
Oh no,
So
absolutely.
I feel like there was a lot of well, I'll get into that in a review, but I'll just say that it was a relatively tame episode. But to get into some of the themes and breaking down the episode, were there any ones before I hop into mine? I want to give you the floor. Were there any ones that kind of came to mind for you specifically in this episode?
I mean, for me specifically, it was definitely Dexter trying to handle things a little bit more conservatively, just
Sure.
because he's got this opportunity to actually be in Harrison's life in
Yes.
a more quote unquote normal way, where he's trying to sort of curb his usual tendencies
Yeah.
and also coming to the realization that Harris is not like him. Harrison obviously has had his times where he's killed, but he's still inherently a good person. So to the point that in the instances when he has killed, there's been immense guilt. He's not getting any type of rush from it the way that Dexter does. And
Sure.
Dexter, to his credit, is making a concerted effort to really acknowledge that. And while he still wants to help Harrison, he knows that he has to go about it differently.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny you bring that up because that actually, without you even know it, hopped into one of the themes that did strike me, and it's just the idea of being the kind of the twisted kind of parenthood that we come across, in this episode. Not just with what you mentioned with Dexter, but I would say also with, and I mentioned this in other episodes too, but it's popped up again, and that's the twisted kind of parent relationship that Prater has among his his brethren, if you will, within this SK group. And I
Yeah.
say that in that it presents itself in this episode, the beginning of this episode, when what is it? Charlie is again providing her suspicions about Red, and
Yeah.
in the same way that a parent would do, knowing this when we're talking about different types of relationships that parents may have with other individuals, whether it's teachers or other outside parties in relation to their kids or their children. Their perception of who their kid is completely different from maybe the perception that is the reality. So that was fascinating, where he seems to kind of have some twisted sense of pride with the members of his group, and he defends them uh
Yeah.
in a lot of cases, which is really fascinating. So I'm curious to know how you feel about that element that has seemed to pop up not just in prior episodes, but in this episode too.
I mean, you definitely get that sense with Prater, especially as Dexter starts sort of like going through the group and figuring out ways to dispatch them and being able to sort of sidestep Prater as far as, okay, these are the rules I have for our little community, and also, like, the whole idea of him having to do like show and tell in the previous episode,
Sure.
and Dexter saying, all right, I'm not even going to come up with any type of scheme or subterfuge. I'm just going to be very cryptic in being totally honest. And it actually ends up working because Prater seems to really gravitate to that. And obviously, once you learn Prater's backstory, you kind of get the sense of him sort of finding kinship with these serial killers and just trying to really give them the space to be themselves. And I think that's something that over the course of this season so far, Dexter has really latched onto, and in some cases it's been to his detriment. But you do
Yes.
see how it's starting to benefit him because it forces him to look at his relationship with Harrison in a different way that is much closer to how you would want a traditional parent-child relationship to be.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, bringing up another point that you made in talking about the various roles that a lot of our characters on this series are playing, and I mentioned it in last week's show, and I feel like it kind of rears its head again this week, and that is the idea of mass or duality, and
Mhm.
the kind of conflicting roles that a lot of our characters play. You know, whether we're talking about Prater, we have the face that he puts on, the public face that he puts on of being this very generous, wealthy individual, and we see an example of that in the interaction with one of the people that are helping to organize the gala, where apparently he helped with a child of theirs with a specialist that they needed. And then we kind of see like a 180 from him where he's interacting with Charlie, and it's within that same scene. So you have one side of him where this is the face that he presents, and then kind of the darker element that we see in his interactions with Charlie, with Al. Similar thing, right? We have the
Mhm.
devoted, quote unquote, the devoted father, and he seems like the everyday, like run of the mill guy, but he's, and on one hand he's this devoted father, but on the other hand he's this serial killer that has been known as Rapunzel. With Dexter, same thing, supportive father on one end, but of course we know him as the real dark passenger, right?
Yeah,
um
yeah. I mean,
that part. And then even with Blessing too, I mean, we have an instance with that as well, where he wants to have this role as the ideal husband and father with his family unit, and then all of that comes crashing when his daughter comes to know of his troubled past as a child soldier. So like there are all these different elements with a lot of our characters where we have this duality that's fascinating, where you have the part of themselves that they have as I get as they present themselves to the world or to the public, and then they
mhm.
have that other aspect of themselves, which
Yeah.
I felt was really fascinating with each of those characters. But was there anything along those lines that came to mind for you?
I mean, definitely, because even when you look at how dogged Batista has been in trying to get
Yeah.
more evidence in Dexter and trying to establish this relationship with Detective Wallace. And I kind of love the whole thing from when Dexter and Harrison go to the lecture at the criminology college,
Yeah.
and she ends up being the
Yeah.
speaker.
Yeah.
And you remember that she talked about the speaking engagement she would do in a previous episode.
Right.
But
Sure.
as far as Batista, you see him still trying to be a detective who wants to catch the bad guy, and Wallace is just learning more and more to put him on her radar once she finds out that he's retired and that he wasn't even able to catch Dexter in the act when he had the landlord in his kill room.
Yeah.
But I mean, you also have Charlie, where first of all, Uma Thurman in this character is just great because obviously we've seen her as a badass in like the Kill Bill films and whatnot, but
Yeah.
her as a henchwoman for a main villain is kind of fascinating to me. And throughout these episodes, you have those moments where I guess she's visiting her sick mother.
Yeah. Completely
And
different side to her that we see. Yeah.
completely different because there you see a child
Yes.
and you see someone who is watching their parents slowly die.
Yeah.
And that's its own dichotomy because you have this instance where she has to watch this happen on a personal level and it's slow and you have time to kind of sit with all of those emotions. And then the other side of it is her being this hard ass who is working for a man who collects serial killers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's more of an immediacy to that whole idea of ending a life.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
like, even the scene where Dexter goads the other Gemini twin, which was another hilarious thing to discover, because yeah, it's that obvious when you look back and think, "God damn it!" But you see how, on a professional level, Charlie is dealing with, oh crap, or who Dexter, she thinks is Red, just killed Garrett, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, that's unfortunate and kind of frustrating, and it's very much, well, shit, this is like something going wrong at work versus her being the child to a dying parent and just having that not necessarily facade or that mask come down because you know these two sides to her are what make her a whole person, and that's usually the case with any character, especially in the case of Dexter.
For sure. And then let me ask you this. I'll pose this question to you. Do you feel, because I have my thoughts on this when we're talking about this idea, do you feel that there, uh, other than Charlie, because I feel like Charlie is one of the few where those sides to her are truly genuine, where like the dynamic that she has with her parent, I feel is genuine. I don't feel like she's kind of just phoning that in. I don't feel like it's that way with Dexter, but with our other characters mentioned, do you feel like it is something where they're putting on a facade, or do you feel like it is genuinely something that is part of who they are and it's just another part of their person, so to speak?
I think so. I think as much as we talk about the idea of like masks and whatnot and kind of having this public facing appearance that you want to put out to people versus what you quote unquote really are. I think with most of the other characters, they just have these elements to them that may conflict, but at the same time are still a part of them as an individual. I think especially in the case of Blessing, where he talks he's very upset with Dexter about having this part of his life shared with his daughter because he fought so hard to hide that from her. And it's not that that was necessarily a mask or anything, but obviously this is a part of his past. And it's it's an incredibly difficult part of his past that he wanted to keep from his daughter because he didn't want her to see him as
In
some
that
sort of
way.
monster.
Yeah.
And even though she should be able to understand what that experience must have been like for him, where he didn't really have a choice in the matter. He was not an adult. So I definitely seeing a reconciliation for those two characters, obviously,
Yeah.
because there's no way for, even with his own fear of what his daughter now thinks of him, there is no way, no rational way that the end resolution is going to be her being dismissive or resentful of him because of this past that has now been revealed to her.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you there that I foresee that there will be some element of reconciliation, of actually perhaps even a deeper understanding of where a father is coming from, because maybe it will provide more insight into his perspective, on a lot of things, especially with the circumstances surrounding, I guess, with the husband, going to school. But getting into some theories, I love to know, if there's some that have kind of been uh, uh, pondering in your mind there. There has been one for me, and that one of them that has still continued to be ongoing is, who is this law enforcement individual that Prater is hinting at that he has ties to, and I keep circling Oliva, more so than Wallace. It's
Oliva's the obvious choice.
So I mean, maybe you still feel like some folks out there thinking that it's Wallace, but I feel like Wallace has demonstrated to us that she's not that person. Even though I feel like I understand where those suspicions might have come from.
Yeah, and also like that actor, Dominic Musa, like you kind of see him in a lot of roles where he plays kind of slimy characters.
Hmm.
To an extent, that might even be like a little too on the nose if he did end up being tied to Prater.
But I guess the only reason why I bring that up is because there have been so many instances that kind of highlight my suspicions around him. I was talking about it, with a prior episode where, what was it? Wallace was breaking down her entire investigation of all these things that just didn't add up, and it seemed like he kept trying to counter all of these reasonings that didn't add up, that made her suspicious of Dexter, and he kept coming up with all these rationalizations where he kept, mentioning, oh well, it could be this. Well, statistically, you're great with statistics, like it could be such and such. And then even with the instance this episode where he seems so intent on going to this gala, and I'm thinking that the only reason why he wants to go to this gala is because he actually does know Prater, little to anyone else's knowledge, actually does know Prater pretty well, and is there to, rendezvous with him, perhaps. Because
Makes sense.
because and this is a shout out to last week's guest too. Shout out to you, Media Melody. She brought up the fact that, and I agree, the the instance of the, what is it, the weapon that was used by the Ripper. How was Prater able to get his hands on a weapon like that, if it's
Ah,
an ongoing case,
uh,
if
mm,
if someone in law enforcement didn't give it to him because they had access and the ability to hand it over to
damn, that makes sense.
him? Mic drop, mic drop, mic drop.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I can't take
And,
credit.
and,
Thank you.
and
Thank
yes,
you, Melanie.
I am like riffing on Weebay from The Wire, but
But yeah, like, I mean, he had that whole like shrine to all of these various, what is it, I guess you could call them, what is it, el- I can't think of the word for it, but uh items from various serial killers throughout history. And I mean, some are actually still ongoing, if we're thinking
yeah,
of the world of Dexter, where they still haven't been caught, allegedly, within that world. And
yes.
so, uh yeah, like it just is weird. Even with the resources that Prater has, because we know that he has, that he's wealthy,
I mean, the man
he would
had Jeffrey
still,
Dahmer's refrigerator.
yeah, but he would still have to go through. He would still have to have access, as he said, with someone who's in that department or in that field to bypass all of that protocol. That wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to just be able to bypass all of the folks within that department without someone, some mole being in there that's giving him access to that. So,
Okay.
um, were there any theories, that have come up for you that outside of that you're curious about that you feel like may be on the way?
Honestly, no. Like I honestly hadn't thought about it. And I think
Okay.
that's maybe like one of the things that works really well about this particular series as far as Dexter is concerned, just because I'm so invested in everything that's going on, especially the character dynamics between Harrison and Dexter, that I'm not even spending time trying to theorize what could
You're just
happen.
enjoying the ride.
I'm just
Just enjoying.
enjoying the ride, which is very good and also
Fair
makes me
enough.
very anxious because the last two shows anticlimactic endings.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
wondering if the goal is for this to go into another season,
I mean,
or if it's going to be, okay, Dexter Resurrection is just one season and then the next iteration will be Dexter hyphen something else.
well, here's the thing. I know recently, I mean, it did drop this week that we're not getting, even though there was
An initial
news to
announcement of renewal, yeah,
yeah,
for Original
even though
Sin.
there's news to the contrary, that we're not going to get another season of Dexter Original Sin, which, as much as I love that show, because I really did enjoy it, and it kind of renewed my interest in the world of Dexter, because like you, I was kind of middling there by the end of New Blood, but I feel like what is it, Original Sin kind of revamp that and revitalize that interest. Is that when we're talking about Original Sin, for those that have seen it, I won't spoil it, but I'll just say this: is that it properly establishes a lot of the characters that we've come to know in the world of Dexter. There's enough foundation that they set forth in that show. There was no need to carry on that story for another season, because like the way that they wrapped it up, I feel like if you watch the end of that show and you go into the first season of Dexter, I feel like it would be seamless based
Oh,
on
okay.
where they wrap up that story and those story arcs with some of those characters. And for those that have seen it, you know what I'm talking about, of what story element they wrap up that series with. And you know how what comes of the first season of the original Dexter. I feel like it properly allows you to go from the end of that show into the first season of Dexter. And I feel like if they did an additional season in additional seasons of Original Sin, it would have disrupted that flow of, if you were watching, the order, chronologically, that I feel like it would have disrupted that flow if you did
Okay.
another season, because there would, based off of what we know in the original show, I feel like they would have dragged out that element with, I'll say, Dexter's familial ties. They would have dragged that out for multiple seasons when it wouldn't have been necessary. And where they leave it off, I feel like, is great for you to hop right into, the original show, a couple of years later, or
Oh, okay.
however many years later. You may feel differently. Like, I'm guessing based on your response that you feel like you could have done with another season, but
Well, no, because I didn't watch the Original Sin at all.
okay. Okay.
So even now, with you telling me this, I'm a little bit intrigued and thinking to myself, maybe I should check it out, especially with the knowledge that it's one season, and based on what you're telling me,
It works
how it
perfectly
ends
as a
kind
mini
of like
series.
wraps things up enough that you
Yes.
don't feel like you're cheated if now that we know that there's not going to be another season.
Yes.
I think now, because especially with how much I've kind of been hyped up with Resurrection and just seeing how it's all playing out, and especially with the whole interplay between Batista and Dexter, especially that car ride where he just makes it clear.
Yeah, that was a great scene. I enjoyed that scene a lot.
If I am who you think I am, why do you want to go down this road?
Right.
You know,
right. Right.
with everything you know, as much as you keep bringing up how Notes got, as much as you keep bringing up LaGuerta getting got,
How do you see this ending well?
How do you see this playing out? Let's be serious. You know I'm that dude.
So, but one other theory that I love to kind of pick your brain about is when we're talking about Al, considering what we just discussed of the likelihood that what is it? Original Sin was brought to a halt to likely continue on with Resurrection. Do you foresee, with the remaining episodes that we have left, that he will reappear, or do you believe that they will save him for another season?
Oh, how many more episodes are left?
So we are in episode 8, so we have 2 more left.
Okay, 2 more left. Oh no, I don't think Dexter's gonna like die or get caught or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's gonna be like the end of Blade 2, where he just says, "Oh, you didn't think I forgot about you, did you?" Like that would be the after credit scene for the. That's what I feel might happen.
That would be cool. But I do like that actor though.
No,
what's his name?
Dexter is going to match up with that dude.
Yeah. So I mean, are you confirmed? Like, are you saying that you do feel that they will wrap that up before the season is done? Or
I think so, because I don't see that being something that works as a big enough story point to carry over into a second season.
A loose end, yeah.
Because as it is, he was already part of Prater's group and kind of the last one that Dexter even thought about.
Yeah.
All the other killers in that group were much bigger personalities, I'd say. Like when you look at Lowell, and then obviously the brief moment where Dexter thought that he was going to have some kinship with Mia. And just to see that fall apart. And yes, you've been down this road before, and it never works.
And as I mentioned,
it's a shame because you do want Dexter to find someone to match his freak, but it's just not going to happen. And at this point, she is like striking.
Freak.
I mean, arguably, that is his third strike right there.
But I will say this: give credit where credit is due. I'm so glad that they did not go down that route again. Like we've done that before many times with kindred spirits that are somewhat troubled, women that he ends up having relationships with, and as you said, they never turn out well. And at the end of the day, like, let me see, one of them he had to take out. And then the other two, they didn't stick around.
Yeah.
There's one
the one he left Harrison with.
Yeah. The one before that.
And then she died of
I'm saying even before that, the one before her, who he was kind of protecting, she couldn't see herself long term kind of coming to terms with his darkness. So she left, and then I can't think of her name. His I guess you would say the one who's probably closest to who he is. She was diabolically insane, and he had to get rid of her.
Yeah.
So like it's never turned, as you said, it's never turned out well. But I'm glad that they didn't fall, like I said, they didn't fall back on that plot device or that plot
Hmm.
element that we've seen in the past. Like I'm glad that they introduced it and they kind of had it as a red herring, and they diverted that expectation. I was like, oh man, they're doing this again. And then she
Hmm.
finally revealed who she was. I was like, okay, cool,
Yeah.
cool. We're going a different way. Okay, all right. Um, but be that as it may, before we get into our review overall and our overall details of how we feel about this episode, were there any other things that you wanted to highlight, whether it be breaking down this episode, or I guess you probably don't have any remaining theories because I know you said you wanted to go along for the ride. But before we get into
Hmm.
that review, any thoughts?
I was just surprised at Harrison, um,
Uh-oh.
with that new girl, where he knew what he needed to do.
Well, here's the thing. I mean,
He was like my man in Sinners, where he's just like, I just want to taste you.
well, here's the thing. Like, I mean, well, what is it? Harrison, like, we don't know what Harrison's been up to post New Blood. Remember, he was on the road. So I'm just saying, like, we
That man
just
wasn't getting no ass between now and then. Let's keep it 100.
hey man, like he was
That
in
that,
the
that,
movie.
that, that boy was just trying to survive. So to the point that we've established, this dude has to sleep in empty hotel rooms to catch a good night's sleep because he ain't got nowhere else.
I mean, hospitality industry. I don't know.
I mean, I feel like
I don't
realistically,
know.
after probably like another 3 or 4 months, he could have parlayed that into, okay, just come over, let's do this. And obviously, he was pining after Elsa in the
Elsa,
beginning.
yeah, yeah,
So once he was in that job and they met, that was kind of his focus. And then that didn't go where he wanted it to go.
right.
And then met Gigi, and she was like, yeah, it sucks that, my hand's all fucked up because, it's
But
tough
I
when
feel
you've
like
got
she's
things you
more
want
his
to do.
jam, though. I feel like she's more his jam, though.
Oh, absolutely.
Way more his jam. I don't know.
That's very
So
that's very much the opposites attract situation where she's obviously way more sort of the extroverted type, and
yeah, yeah,
Harrison obviously has his issues that have made him very closed off.
yeah, sure.
So those two fighting each other is actually very sweet.
Yeah, yeah, for
And
sure.
even when she tells him about the damage in her arm being permanent and fearing that she's never going to be able to have a career in law enforcement, and him being able to tell her, listen, my dad was splatter analyst in Miami PD for like 20 years. There are other things you could do.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, giving you the floor as the guest host this week, getting into our wrap up, and I wish I had my slides, as I always say, but had to make do with microscopes here. So if we're talking about the microscopes of five being a perfect episode, and trickling on down from good to average to subpar, where would you place episode 8?
Hmm, I think I'm going to go probably around, I want to say 3.5.
Okay.
Because I think one of my favorite episodes so far was probably episode 6. I think that
Okay.
was like a very strong episode as far as what they accomplished, especially with the reveal about Garrett at the end. Because, again, as obvious as that should have been, it still caught me completely by surprise. This
Yeah.
one, I feel like, is one where even with things intensifying with Batista and just kind of Dexter trying to navigate around Prater and try and get out, I feel like there was still sort of kind of like a de-escalation happening. There throughout most of the episode, which is kind of ironic because a lot of stuff does happen here.
Yeah.
But it felt very calm
Yeah.
and very down tempo, and
Yeah.
especially with Dexter having that landlord on his kill table and the full intention of just scaring him.
Yeah.
And it does make for this hilarious moment where he's putting him in his car, in the trunk of his car, and he's got the pantyhose on where it just makes him look absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then as someone's walking by, he pulls it up and he actually looks even more ridiculous because he's just got this shocked look on his face as this New York hipster passes by him and doesn't even pay him attention. And he's like, oh.
But again, New York. And
Yeah.
New York, which is why like the setting of having it in New York is such a nice change of pace, because, and I've mentioned this before, is that was one of my issues with New Blood, is the fact that knowing how small towns work, it would be really difficult for Dexter to operate the way that he would need to operate if he was living in a small town. There would be no way that anything that he would do would get past people. But, you know, that would be different in like a big city, say New York or LA or some other, you know, major city. So I would say, and I've mentioned this, and this is becoming an ongoing trend, I should say, when we're talking about this series, that continues to irk me. And please do not do this in for season 2 for Dexter Resurrection, and that is flash forwards. Those flash forward transitions drive me up the wall. They drive me nuts.
Oh, at the beginning of the episodes?
Needed. Yes, they're not needed. Stop. Please stop. 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 That is all. I feel like with having the new setting of New York, just like you had with the original Dexter show, and I'll bring this up again, there's something really cool that you can do with the intro, with the setting being in New York for a Dexter show. If we're thinking back on how they did the intro sequence for the original show when he was in Miami, you can do something equally cool for New York with that setting that I feel would be far better than what you're doing with this flash forward transition style that you have. So please stop.
Well, I mean, it's just the nature of TV shows in general where no one wants to have an opening sequence anymore.
Yeah.
Which is an absolute shame.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of the nature of things now where, all right, we just need to cut to a title card, and only on a couple of exceptions, which I think is why stuff like, you know, the first season of Peacemaker was such a hit with folks, because they said, okay, not only is this going to be an opening sequence, this is going to be
an opening dance number.
This is going to be a performance. They made their opening title sequence performative in such a way that was able to break through because we've devalued them so much in this era of television. Or if you look at something like Succession, that's just a great opening sequence as well, where you kind of get this whole story. You don't even get like the whole story of the Roy family, but you get the idea of their story through these old 16 millimeter home videos.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, it's like you don't get to know the characters, but you get to know the concept of who these characters are, which is very different than actually knowing them, because you're shown, oh, okay, they're, you know, a family of privilege, and this is how the children have always grown up, and then it's a cut to the boardroom where it's just Logan there sitting alone by himself, because everyone is kind of vying for that position to be in the boardroom, but you know that being in that boardroom is kind of isolating.
Yeah. I mean, another good example of that that I'll present to you too is if we're talking about Game of Thrones, like iconic in terms of, you don't need to know the ins and outs of every single detail of what's going on, but it gives you kind of, just like you were talking about with Succession, it gives you kind of a lay of the land and a general sense of different things that are at play in the series, whether we're talking about the different places that are within that world, whether we're talking about the different families, their family crests, uh,
Mm-hmm.
talking about elements that are specific to different groups of people, how
Yeah.
different areas are differentiated among others, maybe because of their climate, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
So and I mean, if you really think about it, if you really look at it again and revisit those intros, they're not short intros. They're relatively lengthy, but it,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it is not just there for it's not empty time. Like I feel like it
No.
for someone who is not familiar with the world of Game of Thrones, I feel like it provides a warm up or an introduction to what you're getting yourself into and watching that show.
Yeah, because the whole idea of it is not to give you specifics about the characters. It's about laying you in on the fact that the show is about conflict. And it's
Yeah,
about conflicts that span generations
yeah, and various factions and
and
groups.
various factions. Like, you don't need to, like, you're going to watch the show and understand who the characters are in the specifics. But in terms of the intro, it's telling you the story in the most fundamental way. And I
And
think that's something that when you start a TV show and you just say, all right, here's the title of the show, and now we're going to go into it. You used to have like this as a primer.
yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Thank you.
Yeah.
That I feel like that's a perfect word in terms of what I'm trying to get across is a primer. It gives you a feel or a preparation of what is to come, of what you're about to see. Um,
Think about Miami Vice, for example, the intro to Miami Vice. Because that was a show that was just about, it wasn't just about, vibes, but it was giving you this idea of where it was taking place. It wasn't even letting on the idea that, oh, this is a cop show,
yeah,
because that was very intentional.
yeah,
The idea, and with a lot of different cop shows, because you look at stuff like, what was it, like Cop Story, I think, which I
yeah,
think was another one that Michael Mann was a producer on, or it was Crime Story. It was Crime Story or Cop Story, but basically Michael Mann was a producer on both of these shows. And the whole idea is the setting of these shows is a character in and of itself.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, the thing that is also fascinating that I'll bring up is that it seems when it's done well, it it's hard to explain. A lot of times when it's done well like that, it can be very subliminal in that you don't realize that you're kind of getting the feel of what to anticipate or what's coming, but somehow you do, where maybe different elements that are introduced in those types of sequences you don't realize that you're connecting with or that you're picking up, but when you watch the series you realize that because of what you viscerally were able to gather in those types of intros, that you are picking up on it when you are watching the show. Because I'll give you another example of it too, and I'll actually go into I'll age myself and go into some cartoons here. Is if we're talking about Batman Beyond, like of
Oh
prior
yeah.
to that, we have a lot of Batman series, especially those for cater to kids, where we're talking about present day. In the case of the animated series, as awesome as it is a distinctive style when we're talking about fitting kind of retro sensibilities to a modernized story, where they are incorporating that a lot into the animation that we have with the vehicles and all those things, the weapons that are used by law enforcement. It seems very retro,
Hmm.
but with Batman Beyond, it's a brand new tale where we have a younger Batman, far younger Batman than we've had before, And also we have this new futuristic world that we have yet to see, this new iteration of Gotham that we are provided a window into when we're looking at that initial opening of the show. So
which is
but
like very much in contrast to the original Fox Batman the Animated Series,
right,
because
exactly.
obviously the new Batman Adventures, they didn't even have a intro. They split it between him and Superman, which always
Right,
annoyed the piss out of
right,
me. But
right.
yeah, the whole idea with Batman the Animated Series was just absolutely classic, because the whole idea of that is, all right, we are in Gotham, there is crime in Gotham, and Batman fights crime. And it's so mind-numbingly simple in its conceit, where, look, you're not even going to see Batman in full until the end of the intro, where it's a split second um, flash of lightning where you can see him outside of just being a silhouette or in shadows.
Yeah.
And they don't even have a title card for that, because it's Batman. You understand this.
Iconography, yeah.
You understand this iconography. You've got Danny Elfman doing the theme song,
Yeah.
bringing his theme song from the Burton films, and they incorporate that into that show. So from that level, as far as a title sequence goes, yeah, you don't have to even say what it is, because you already know.
Yeah, for sure. And continuing down that review, I realized we both went on a huge tangent, but it's all good because it's all great stuff. And talking
I don't
about
give a damn. That's what I'm all about.
of talking about the flash forward issues, but
Yeah.
other issues that I had. I know I mentioned at the top that I felt like this is very much a build-up episode. This is very tame by Dexter standards of what we expect with this show and what has
Yeah.
happened in other episodes. And you understand why it's a build-up episode, because I would gather that episode 9 probably has a WTF moment, which is why we're getting all of this buildup of all of these things that are kind of coming to a head, because perhaps we'll have a WTF moment in the next episode, kind of going towards the lane in which you described. Maybe everything kind of will be wrapped up by episode 9, and then we'll have the remaining plot thread with Al to close off the season in 10, kind of like what you said with Blade 2. I do like
Yeah.
that idea, but maybe they can, yeah.
Yeah, I don't even think it's going to be something that populates the entire episode. I'm saying it's going to be a quick scene, like maybe just before the end credits or even after the end credits, where it's Dexter showing up at this dude's place, wherever he lived. I can't remember exactly where it was. Was it like
Wisconsin?
Wisconsin. Yeah, it's going to be Dexter showing up in Wisconsin. Al probably about to do another kill, and having Dexter catch up with him.
Okay, all right, fair enough. But no, I do like that idea in terms of how what is it, track space we have for the remaining 2 episodes, and how it'll get laid out. That I could see that they'll have everything wrapped up with Charlie and with Prater perhaps by the end of the next episode. Maybe I could be wrong, and then wrap up the loose end with Al by episode 10. But outside of that, another issue that I did have is the practicality of the decisions that characters are making. And I'm sorry, I got to put Dexter on blast as much as he always seems to make the decisions that make the most sense practically. In this case, I have to call him out on making the kill room in the in the wig store. If we're talking about this day and age that we have with surveillance, there's no way that you can tell me that he was somehow able to manage that, whether the workers are there on vacation or not, because we understand that they were on vacation.
Yeah.
That he was able to do that.
No, it's that exposed.
Yeah. So like, unless you have some,
I was already mad when he killed the first Gemini twin in his own apartment while there's a
yeah. I mean,
whole
I
ass
could go
service
back
going
further
on.
than that. I have an issue with Harrison with the guy in the hotel. There's no way he could have accomplished all of that between the hotel room and the kitchen, with everything that he did, and not have anything seem suspicious about that or be seen.
Yeah.
But again, like practically, maybe if you had a throwaway scene where he took out the alarm system, he did additional research of getting rid of the surveillance, all of that, then I would have bought it. But like,
I mean, because I feel like I feel like, especially with the original Dexter series lasting a solid 8 episodes, which was, in my opinion, at least 3 seasons too many.
yeah,
Like that,
agreed,
yeah, it lasted 8 seasons.
agreed,
So, and realistically, it probably should have ended after season 5.
agreed, agreed, agreed.
Um, I feel like with as many episodes as there were in that original run, there were probably more than a handful that revolved around Dexter having to work around those issues.
Yeah,
My whole thing with the kill room in the wig shop was, all right, there's still like a whole other level that you're not covering in plastic where, like, if you
exactly.
establish that Harrison got blood on the ceiling in his kill,
Wouldn't it happen in your case too?
exactly.
Because the only
And
I
to,
was go ahead. I was just saying the reason
yeah,
why I also bring that up is I don't know if you watch this series, and this is if any of you guys haven't watched it out there either, I highly recommend it. It's the first season was terrific. Is Your Friends and Neighbors?
oh
So
yes, yes, with
yeah,
John Hamm.
so yes.
Oh yeah,
So
no,
when we're
I
talking about that
absolutely love that.
show, which is why I bring up this point with Dexter, for anyone who has seen that series, they dedicate a whole sequence and a montage to the fact that they're focusing on all these different things that they have to do to successfully carry out what they're trying to do. Whether it's alarm systems, whether it's surveillance, there's a whole other subplot just to get codes for the alarm systems. Like there's
Yes,
literally a whole subplot with that, which I appreciate it because like in this day and age where there's so much technology between the security that people have, between the surveillance that is carried out on a day in and day out basis, and
everyone has a ring camera.
just in everyday life, you can't force me to buy that he's able to do this without providing some explanation as to how he's able to do it. In any other show, when we're talking about, a period piece, because we might as well call it a period piece when we're talking about Original Sin, that's a different decade. So, the technology was not up to par at that point. So you could buy that maybe some things they were able to accomplish and do. But in this modern day and age, and we're talking about resurrection that's supposed to logically happen in current times right now, in present day right now, where we're in a day and age where there's tons of surveillance and there's tons of security that utilizing crazy forms of technology. You cannot tell me
Thank
that
you,
he was
Peter
able to
Thiel.
break into this store, was able to fit it in the way that he needed to, and to also bring a person there and carry out what he was trying to carry out at this store without any suspicions, without not taking out tripping any alarms, about not causing what is it suspicion from stores, because we forget when we're talking about stores like that, a lot of them look out for each other. You have stores that, know
Yeah,
other owners next door, store neighbors. They all know each other. So they may be suspicious. Where they're like, this person's out of town. Why are the lights on? Or, things
yeah.
just like basic things like that. So like if you're, even if it's a throwaway, even if you're able to somehow provide an explanation for just those minor things, as is the case in, like I said, that series, Your Friends and Neighbors, then I can go with it. But if you don't, then I'm going to question it, and it's going to kind of take me out of what you're trying to carry out in the episode.
And it is kind of like a double-edged situation because you have to factor in that it's New York City.
It is. It is.
And on the one hand, I feel like where that wig shop was, that's a highly exposed area for him to be doing that shit.
Yes.
But you go to a whole other borough, you might be able to get away with a lot. You go to the Bronx, you could be able to get away with a lot. You go to certain parts of Harlem because they've been gentrifying the hell out of Harlem. Last time I was there back in March, I was like, this is Harlem? Jesus Christ. But you go to certain parts of Harlem, you can get away with a lot. You probably still get away with a lot.
Than me, sir.
You probably still get
been to Harlem recently, so
yeah. You could probably that is the spot for families now. That is the family spot. I went and saw my friend and her husband and their daughter. That's where they stay at. But yeah, go to the Bronx. Probably not anywhere in Brooklyn anymore. Probably a few places still in Brooklyn you can go to and get away with a lot. But if you're like in Manhattan,
allegedly,
Queens, I'm gonna challenge you on that. SVU or regular like homicide from Law and Order, they go get you.
Oh man. But
what was it when someone came up with lyrics for the Law and Order song? They taking you to jail. They taking you like that. That's just a punishment without
maybe he'll get the strap next season. I don't know, man.
Nah, he's a knife man. He likes his knives.
Yeah. I don't see that. I don't see that happen. I don't see him getting strapped up. But the things, and I know I've kind of just harped on all the things that I had issues with. The things that I will say that I did like. This is a small thing. He said the thing, tonight. He did. It was like, oh, he said the thing. He said the thing. At the 3:18 mark. So I appreciate it that they did that. That they actually said the line of what we have here in the show.
Of the show,
yeah. And then also, I would just say, I will give credit where credit is due. The writing was actually pretty sharp this episode. And I mean, it's not to say that it's not sharp in other episodes, but I guess the wordplay and some of the lines that a lot of the characters had in terms of how they interacted, or even with Dexter in his inner monologue, or the conversations that he had with with Harry. I appreciated it, where we have this comparison that's made with his urge, with the concept of hunger, where he's like, so is this an example of you being hangry, frustrated about not being able to get Al, and just overall the other instances where they talked about him kind of like in the day and age that we have with social media, where you're kind of shaving down your the group of friends that you have, or you're shaving down the folks maybe over a course of time that even in a minute period of time you've gotten to know, and maybe you're just trying to like clear out your entire profile. He did something like that, at the top of the episode when we're talking about the SK Club, where he was like, and then there was one, and wiped out all the other contacts of everyone that he had interacted with, in that group. But yeah, I mean, I would have to agree with you. 3.5 microscopes for me, for different reasons, but the same idea, in that, for me, my favorite episode thus far this season was the introduction of the entire group, where he was brought to Prater's home, and we got an introduction of each character. Well, first we got an introduction to Prater and his obsession with all of these with all these serial killers, and like this whole weird twisted shrine that he had of all these various people throughout history. And then individually, each of our characters within that group and what kind of made them tick, or what made their habits or their methods different from one person to one individual to another.
Yeah.
That was interesting. So I would say that was, and I would say the one your episode would probably come in second because that was a crazy reveal. But I would say that episode in which we had the introduction.
And it's
Of those
crazy
characters.
because one of the things that really stuck out to me once they all introduce all of the um, people in Praetor's Club is everyone I felt was perfectly cast except Neil Patrick Harris.
Really?
I
Okay.
felt like he was a little bit too much of a camp factor to it,
Okay. Okay.
where it kind of stood in contrast to what everyone else was doing, where you kind of get the idea of, okay, you can believe Kristen Ritter as a serial killer, or Eric Stone Street, or even David, especially David Dismelchin. Like that,
Yes.
I love that dude. I love everything he does. But yeah, and he'll admit it to you. He's like, yeah, kind of gives off serial killer vibes. But I will say, if anything, it made me want to see a completely unrelated project where Neil Patrick Harris and Michael C. Hall play a couple.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. But yeah, as I said, like a lot of build up. Hopefully, is going somewhere in these last two episodes. As you said, when we're talking about Dexter, they haven't had a great track record when it comes to. They have a terrific track record of building interest, but wrapping it up in a
Mm-hmm.
satisfying way. That is something that has yet to happen thus far. So hopefully
It's a challenge.
hopefully it will not be the case this go around. But I mean, if we're getting another season, um, that kind of places things in a different boat versus it being a series finale. So because we did know, if memory serves, when it was New Blood, it was promoted as a miniseries, so we knew that we weren't going to get, if memory serves, more of it. So it kind of did
Okay.
put pressure on that show to start things and then to wrap it up in a nice bow. And I feel like that's a different challenge than it is of wrapping up a season, where it gives you leeway to carry it out in future seasons.
Okay.
Yeah. But we did have some comments here. Same guy, he says, from Space Force, will there be Dexter Easter eggs in GTA 6 next year? Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of behind on my GTA. Maybe you would know better than me, Kayode.
Well, I mean, because I think that they're doing like Vice City, Miami again, sort of.
Yeah.
So I assume that that's where that question is coming from. It would kind of be cool if they did something to allude to the property of Dexter, just because I think, again, for a show that ran 8 seasons and kind of became synonymous with Miami, and also kind of like that idea of Miami, like when I was talking about Miami Vice, because when you look at the production of those shows, they are giving you this very glossy kind of aesthetic
Yeah.
to what you would expect from Miami. And usually you're probably just talking about South Beach,
Right.
at least in my experience, because I have a lot of family in the Miami Fort Lauderdale area. And, yes, it is kind of sunny and whatnot, and you get that sort of tropical vibe to it. But usually when you're in Miami, there are still parts that look pretty comparable to what you might see in suburban areas. Here, they just have a few more palm trees and you can see the water.
Sure. Sure.
But yeah, I assume that in terms of GTA 6 having like some sort of Easter egg, like maybe you just see someone, just dragging a body in the background. I don't know.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
I have no idea. And Lord knows we don't even know when this game is even going to be coming out. It's been in development for so long. The
Forever.
trailer that came out looks great. It's ridiculous the amount of detail you're seeing in these games now, where if you see a beer bottle on a coffee table, they even animate bubbles inside the beer bottle now. It's ridiculous.
And I mean, I'm gonna age myself. It's been so long since playing GTA that I had long since carried over to Saints Row at that point. So,
Oh.
so if that gives you any indication of how long it's been, that'll probably give you
I'll
some
age
insight.
myself further from when I was playing GTA on PS1, when it was just straight top down.
Oh wow, wow, wow. But with that said, we want to wrap it up here at tonight's the night. Appreciate you, Kayode, for joining me tonight to talk about episode 8. Before I let you go, can you tell folks where they can find you?
You can find me on Blue Sky at KenK1980. That is KENK 1980. I'm also on YouTube at random with Ken K. If you look that up, so I just started posting videos again over there after taking a long break, and I will probably do a video on the entirety of this season of Dexter Resurrection, just because between showing up here and having a good time watching the show, I'm going to have a lot to say about it. So be sure to check it out.
All right, excellent. So again, want to thank Kayode for joining us. I'm your host once again, Brandon Choi, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me at Brandon Choi ENT on X, and then Brandon Choi _ ENT on Instagram. With that being said, also want to give a shout out to my Patreon supporters out there. Thank you guys so much. You guys help keep the lights on. If you guys want to be, for those of you that aren't Patreon supporters, if you want to be a supporter, we have a whole bunch of different tiers that you guys can be a part of and participate in to be a part of the community. So thank you guys so much. As I said, with that out of the way, thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and see y'all soon. Bye now.